Hi, I'm Yannick Hanfman.
I'm Ilya Marchenko.
I'm Dennis Kudla.
This is Sebastian Wolfner.
It's Marc-Andrea Whistler.
I am Francisco Cerundolo.
And you're listening to the Game to Love podcast. Hopefully you enjoy it.
Hopefully.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this Game to Love special. I'm joined here today by James, and we're gonna talk you through the grass season. So welcome everyone who's already watching the stream, and welcome James. Great to have you here today.
It's great to be on to talk about what is possibly my favourite surface for when it comes to tennis surfaces. Unfortunately, it is a very short period of time, which of course is the grass court season.
Yeah, I have to agree with you that, in my opinion, the grass court season should be 1 or at least 2 months longer. We're getting tons and tons of hardcore tournaments, which are not, in my opinion, always the most exciting tournaments. So I would love to see a bit more clay and a lot more grass coming up. But luckily, there are a lot of grass tournaments in this short amount of time. So we have a lot to talk about today. And we have a handy presentation to help us talk through it.
We're going all very green today. Very, very green.
Very green, indeed. So these are the tournaments that we're going to talk about today mainly, but of course we're also going off topic where we can, and also we'll be talking about all the questions that you have in the chat. So if you already have something that you would like us to talk about in regards to the grass season or tennis in particular, then let us know. For the men's side, we have the Boss Open in Stuttgart, the Libema Open in Rosmalen, and the Challenger in Surbiton that we're going to talk about. And James, for the women, there's also quite some nice tournaments.
There is. We have the Nottingham Roeland Open, a company, I still have no idea what products they actually sell, but we'll gloss over that. And then we've got the sort of the second half of the Rosmalen double that is happening at the moment, the Lima Open, of course, the WTA 250, along with, of course, like I said, the Nottingham, which is the 250 at the moment. And yeah, those are the cool tournaments that we're discussing today, which make up the sort of first official, but you kind of account last week with Surbiton as well. It's de facto second week of the grass court season.
Yeah, fair enough. And this Roeland company, they are doing like 4 of these tournaments, right? So that's quite a lot of sponsor money coming tennis way from them.
Yeah, you've got, if you love the Roeland, you've got the Roeland Open, the Roeland Classic, which is in Birmingham, and the Roeland International, which is in Eastbourne. So Roeland all the way.
Well done, fair on them. We have one thing coming in already from Ghost of Gearlitis saying the challenges of transitioning from clay to grass. Is that why we're seeing a bunch of upsets? Well, that's I think a nice bridge to the next slide. So thank you for cooperating in this presentation. Not a paid actor, by the way. So the first tournament, Stuttgart. We have the semi-finals of Tiafoe against Fuchsovic and Horkac against the winner of Struff against Gasquet. Let me just check if that was already finished. Yeah, Struff beat Gasquet 6-4, 7-5. So he will be playing.
So Gasquet isn't going to get his 601 first victory then today.
Unfortunately, but his single-handed backhand did have a big victim in this tournament because he knocked out first seed Tsitsipas, so that was quite impressive.
It was incredibly impressive. I mean, like we say, it's the first week of grass, and Stuttgart can be a very weird surface when it comes to grass. And I know one of the players we'll end up talking about later on, Andy Murray, made comment about, or at least made comment about the fact of his choice to go to Nottingham over Surbiton this week, over Stuttgart this week, given the fact of the conditions at Stuttgart with the grass courts. They have their major differences in terms of quality of surface and the way they act and whatnot to Wimbledon. But this is a tournament that Tsitsipas has been at a fair few occasions. Last year he got to the quarterfinals, if I remember correctly, quarters or second round, and was knocked out by, funny enough, Andy Murray last time around. He was
Yeah, be prepared, guys.
But yeah, I mean, Tsitsipas is one of those players which, realistically, you think, strong forehand, good serve. Okay, maybe not the best backhand. It almost sounds like Berrettini. He should be good on grass, but it very much has been the case that Tsitsipas is, very much concentrated on the clay courts a lot, especially during
Yep.
a young point of his career. And even though I think there was a interview he did a few years back when he was like just coming out of being a youngster and going into the main play, so the grass was his favourite surface. Grass is not his favourite surface. It is by far his favourite surface. But we do know that Tsitsipas does have a title in grass because he won the Mallorca title last year. So he can win on the surface, but at the moment it just looks like he's had a very slow start on it. He's just had a very slow start on it, and as such, he's fallen to Gasquet. Gasquet is a very good grass courter. He's had a lot of matches at Wimbledon, and it is no dishonor to lose to Gasquet. It's not as though you're losing to some randomer ranked, 80 or 90 in the world. Gasquet's won the 250 title this year, and is very good on the surface.
Yeah, and he also is a player known to have quite a lot of top 10 wins. So I think with his amazing single-handed backhand, it's always a dangerous floater in these tournaments. Also in this list, two guys who are actually injured quite a bit. Kyrgios and Berrettini. I think both of them were quite painful to watch. I watched Berrettini for maybe 4 games, and then I saw enough. And Kyrgios was just not really limping around, but you could see that he didn't have it physically to really trouble Wu, and he was serving at quite a high speed, but everything else I was not really impressed with.
It was a worry. It's a worry about Berrettini because he came off a similar injury this time last year when he went and won both Stuttgart and also Queens back to back, and it was as though he had the ab issues. He was able to come back quite well and was able to really just hit the ground running. This wasn't the same Berrettini that hit the ground running this time last year, which I would suggest that it's something more serious, or he's actually injured it significantly more than what we were expecting, and he's rushed himself back to get to the grass because he knows it's his best chance of actually getting titles this year, and actually his best chance realistically to be able to even win a Grand Slam, because grass is we now distinguish Berrettini with the grass courts. That's where his game suits him best. I'll let you move on to Kyrgios.
Yeah, no worries. No, I was just gonna say that I feel like sometimes these players come back too quickly. We saw it with Tsitsipas as well in the beginning of this year, and I just feel like they have this urge, of course, to be back on the court, which I can relate to. But they risk also dropping a lot of points, especially Berrettini in this grass season. But for me, it just feels like that he should wait until he's like fully fit, because otherwise it's just gonna be 1 or 2 matches coming back and then back into the injury again. So hopefully he and his team can make some good decisions there. Just wanted to bring up some things from the chat. We have Gary in saying Ben and JG are wearing masks, which is actually true. Don't they look quite realistic? Great to see as well, Gary, and all these gyrations before in Wimbledon, only to see Novak nail it down again. I think we might come back to that later in this stream. So hold your horses.
And then of course, we're going on to Kyrgios as well, the other Wimbledon finalist in this draw. He has been out for a significant amount of time, and generally with Kyrgios, it does take a few tournaments for him to get back to any sort of form of fitness. And we saw from this match, it's a respectable score, 7-5, 6-3. I mean, Wimbledon Yu barely has played on the grass this year, but Wimbledon Yu has got a title under his belt on a quick indoor half court in Dallas. So to be able to get, to pick up at least 8 games, still have something on your serve, and be able to just hold yourself somewhat in a few of the rallies. I think where Kyrgios is coming back from his injury comparative to Berrettini is much further ahead, and I know there's going to be a lot of comparisons between those two players, given the fact that they are the 2021 and 2022 Wimbledon finalists.
Yeah, completely agree with you there. Okay, I think we can move on to the next tournament, which is actually happening in my home country in the Netherlands. It's the Libema Open in Rosmalen, close to 's-Hertogenbosch, but I wouldn't want anyone else than me to pronounce it. And the amazing thing about this tournament is that I'm going there tomorrow actually to watch the semifinals. So really, really excited for this. And just like last year when we had the huge upset of Tim van Rijthoven making the final and defeating Daniil Medvedev, who was, I think, then maybe still world number 1 or 2, but he was ranked quite high, and Van Rijthoven beat him. And now we have Tono Griekspoor, the 16th in the semi-finals, playing against Ruusuvuori, who beat Sinner. So it's going to be an exciting day tomorrow. What is your take on this one?
I mean, what this one shows, I mean, you can look at the first semi-final lineup. You cannot back against an Aussie on grass. That is almost like a written rule. They're one of the few countries, along with Germany and the United Kingdom, that actually have some sort of grass court culture. Realistically, that is still embedded in their club system, in their development system. I think the weirdest thing I saw was back in like February or whatever. I saw a futures event that was in Australia that was on some grass courts, which was like, whoa, this is bizarre. But
It's changing. It's changing.
They I think they were a country that were reluctant when they had their Grand Slam change from being a grass court event to a hard court event. They very much still had a lot of appreciation for that pedigree that they have as a grass court nation, and it shows really. Jordan Thompson's excellent on the grass. Alex de Minaur, excellent on the grass. Ichikata's proven to be excellent on the grass. Jet Dennis Kubler had a good run at Surbiton last week. There are a range of Aussies that constantly deliver on the big stage, and Kyrgios as well. Another Aussie that we've already mentioned that was playing in Stuttgart. They are all the Aussies do like to show up for the grass, and that makes sense here. And it is great to see, with Griekspoor being able to, get to the semis, have some sort of home hope in there. And it very much seems as though the Dutch players are really showing up when they're playing at home this year.
Yeah, I'm gonna wear my orange shirt tomorrow, and I think the whole crowd's gonna cheer him on, and we're gonna go crazy. So hopefully we can push him to another victory. And we have Jeans in saying Sinner losing to Ruusuvuori is just so disappointing. Yeah, I think the point that James made earlier about transitioning to the grass season for these top players, apparently this year it's extra difficult because we have Medvedev and Tsitsipas both losing to French 70-year-olds, and then we have Sinner losing to Ruusuvuori. So it's been a tough week for the seeds in a lot of tournaments.
It has been, and it's whenever you get these transitions to a new surface, that tends to be what we see is that the top seed. Basically, it is literally just a number by their name. There is no form or any sort of prestige around that. Because you notice that with clay court events, where when we get to the first week of clay, a lot of top seeds get knocked out quite quickly, and then when we transition at the end of the Wimbledon cycle, moving on to the North American hard court swing, how a lot of top seeds will end up getting knocked out there as they start to get used to the surface again.
Yeah, you're right. And we have Ghost saying that Kyrgios only went to Stuttgart because Costine said she wants the bratwurst. I think that has to be true. No fake news in this podcast, so that's definitely true. And Jean, I'm definitely cheering for Griekspoor, and I'm going to the event tomorrow to watch the men's and women's semifinals. So really hyped for that. All right, maybe enough on Libema for now. We might come back to it later, and then we have Surbiton, and I'll leave this one to you to start off, James.
That's all right. This is almost, we're currently in the present, but we're going to go back to the past just for a little bit here, the recent past. So last week it was almost like the proper official-ish start of the grass court season. When it comes to the Surbiton Challenger, which takes place in a lovely suburb of southwest London, not too far from where I live, and I actually went to the tournament on a couple of occasions.
Very cool.
Given how close it is and how cheap tickets are, and especially to see Andy Murray, which is always always a treat. But Murray managed to do two places or 2 rounds better than he did the year prior, picking up the title in quite comfortable fashion in the final when he played Yuri Ronadova, beating him 6-3, 6-2. But was able to get some good matches throughout the entirety of the tournament. He was a little bit shaky in the first 2 rounds, but was able to get through them, especially against some tough qualifiers. Tough qualifier in the second round, and then Jason Kubler was the only one who was able to take a set off him.
That's impressive.
In the quarterfinals, and then he was able to get through Jordan Thompson, as the guy I already mentioned, in the semi-finals, the guy who was the defending champion at Surbiton. But the main thing why I sort of bring this up is because we know that Andy Murray very much sees the grass season and Wimbledon as his best chance to have a big, deep run at a Grand Slam. This almost is the perfect preparation for Murray to actually start to show that form, pick up some decent points, 125, which means that he's only 70 points off defending his entire grass court total from last year, which was, and also because of the way that the calendar's been pushed back a week, all his Stuttgart and Surbiton points went off at the same time. So at the moment, he's only gaining points. So he's in a very strong position as he currently stands. And just as we speak as well, he's just beaten Dominic Stricker in straight sets in Nottingham to get to the semi-final there. So he's continuing this winning streak that he's got on the grass, getting up some good victories, and with his little sort of mini tour around the UK. And it's very much as putting Murray in people's eyes. And I'm going to discuss later where we got Murray potentially in our power rankings. But very much as give people an idea of watching out for this player, watching out for him, because this is the best we've seen of Murray since the hip injury, since the hip surgery to get him a metal hip. And he could, given the fact that a good chunk of the field aren't exactly singing all praises at the moment. When it comes to grass courts, this could be a very good chance for Murray to get a very, very, very deep run at the most prestigious Grand Slam there is.
And James, do I get a correct feeling that you are on the Murray bandwagon here?
I absolutely love Murray. As a Brit, I will absolutely say that I love Murray. Was the guy that I watched religiously every single year when I was younger, Wimbledon and at Queens. Was he going to do it this year? Was he going to do it this year? And I've had brilliant times with Murray, and the fact that he's winning at the moment and competing so well. Yes, granted, it's on the Challenger circuit at the moment. It fills me with joy. It really does, because he's a great battler, a great competitor. We've seen with the matches he's had this year at the Australian Open, in Qatar, and his run to the Surbiton title here, along with the challenger he got with the Super Challenger Axe du Provence in the clay court season. That he really is determined to make a good go of it this year. Really show to the world that yes, I may be 36, I may have a metal hip, but I can still very much mix it with the best, and I can have a decent season, entertaining people, and long may it continue as long as it can, because as we've noticed with Nadal this year and Federer last year, these greats of the early 2000s, north to the teens time period, they are going one by one, and we have to cherish them as long as we have them.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing with Del Potro and some other players. It's just physically becoming more difficult for them to compete at the highest level. And Murray is an excellent example on, I think maybe the most amazing comeback story in tennis that we had in recent years. We had one question that maybe you can answer. Actually, I put it in the presentation, but I'll leave it to you. And that's is Come the English version of Vamos?
Come on, yeah, it's like it's literally Vamos translates as "come on" for British players. Even though bizarrely, a lot of current top ranked British players like Cam Norrie and Dan Evans shouting "Vamos" now.
Yeah, that's quite hilarious. Yeah,
which is just bizarre. But then you also have a situation where French players shouting "come on." So this is almost like this weird triangle which is taking place with using different languages, little motivational shouts to try and get them going.
Yeah, we need a data chart for this the next time that we can analyze the languages that they shout in. Would be good. All right, moving on. Another tournament in the UK, but this time on the women's side, and it was in Nottingham. And I think it has been quite a good week for British tennis, because British players Burrage, Dart, Poulter and Watson all made it to the quarterfinals, I believe, and two of them are already in the semifinals. So that's make it free. Wow, that's and I think none of them were seeded, right?
None of them are seeded. So look at the list you got there from the quarterfinalists. Both Dart and Watson had to qualify for the event. And Poulter and Burrage, I believe, either received wildcards or were late add-ons in terms of they weren't originally in the main draw, but they got in because of dropouts at the end. And of course, we now have an all-British semi-final on one side of the draw, where we've got Katie Poulter versus Heather Watson, and then we've got Jodie Burrage versus either Cornet or Mandalik. They're currently still playing at the moment, is my understanding. So So I'm just going to have to make sure we've got the right person going to play. I know people on the chat I've seen are really wanting it to be Cornet who's going to be there because she's a lovely player, and it probably is going to be Cornet. She's serving for the match at the moment, so it probably will be Burridge versus Cornet. That'll be a cracker tomorrow. But this is it is very good to see from a British tennis perspective, because a lot of things, coming into this, what happened at the French Open with the fact that, especially on the women's side, we had no main draw competitors out of the 128 players that can compete. There were no Brits in the main draw on the women's side. It raised a lot of questions, and of course Dan Evans, which I already see that Ghost is mentioning in the chat already. Dan Evans came out and started to question actually the state of British tennis, especially the state of British tennis. Sorry, it's definitely the state of women's tennis, women's British tennis, because of where they were in the rankings and the fact that they didn't qualify for the French Open, and it was the first time in 15 odd years that there were no Brits in the main draw. And it's this is one way of answering them back. But the big question that will come out of this is that this is a very much an isolated period of time. We are in this, especially on the women's side, it's brilliant. You've got, you go Surbiton, you go Nottingham, you go Birmingham or Ilkley, then you go to Eastbourne, then Wimbledon. You get to spend an entire amount of time in the UK on the grass, which is a surface that the British players tend to play quite well on, coupled with the fact that you're going to get wildcards into these events, being able to show you what you can do. And this is what happens here. But then the big question is, after Wimbledon, are we going to see these players going deep in tournaments in North America? We've got the China swing coming back, or at least the East Asia swing. Are they going to be there as well? That's a big question, because in the past, it hasn't happened. They've all got injured, or they've all lost form when they've got to those points of the season. And then we're back to the same situation when we get to the French Open, where they can't qualify, and then we've got this circle sort of going over it again and again and again.
Yeah.
My hope is that this is the start of something good, at least for a few of these players, especially Bolter, who is British number one and now has that weight of pressure on her that she can actually now push on into the top 100. Jodie Burridge, she's brilliant. She's got an excellent game that could be in the top 100. But a lot of these players, and especially, like I said, Bolter and Burridge, need to be fit. If they're not fit, they're not going to be competing. They're not going to be breaking into the top 100, and we're not going to see them on the main tour. But if they are fit, that's where we will see them. And I just really hope that the players can run on from here, and that we're not, and that we're not just going to have a situation where we get the grills of like a June season where they do really, really well and we all feel great, and then afterwards they're not there, and then we're basically left with WTA where we don't have that, and people are just clamoring to hope that Emma gets back when God knows when she'll be back.
And James, I think one upside of the grass season being so short, and I think that's the only upside because we need more grass season, but is that if someone is actually carrying good form, the chance that they bring it into Wimbledon is quite big, whereas with the hardcourt season, sometimes someone is in a good form, but then there's 3 or 4 weeks or 5 weeks left until like the US Open, and then the form is already gone, or the person has played too many matches and the fatigue is coming in. So maybe that's something that the British ladies can hang on to. And we have Jean saying Heather Watson already making the BBC headlines. Not only the BBC headlines, Jean, but more later on that. Oh, one last question. How big do you consider the chance that Cornet is going to win the tournament?
I would have her as the favourite. She is very good on grass. But my hope is that I think Burridge will certainly give her a good match. I can see it going to 3 sets, and I could see it being a tight one. But Burridge did lose a set to Katie Swan earlier this week. She lost a set in this match here. She is vulnerable at points. And
Cornet beat Sakkari 6-1, 6-4, so she's looking really good.
Yeah, I mean, Sakkari's not really great on grass.
No, and not really great in the past weeks either.
No, I'm for Sakkari. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. All right, then we're back to the Netherlands. So it's good that we have you as a Brit and me as a Dutch guy on this podcast, because all the tournaments are in our countries. But we have the Rosmalen tournament, but then on the women's side, and actually we see here that we have quite a lot of seeds still in, which is a big difference to the other tournaments. We have Sasnovic against Alexandrova, and then we have Runkakova against Kudermetova or Naev, and then I'm going to check if that match has already been played, or maybe you know already.
I think they're still playing at the moment. I saw live when I popped on. Let me just somebody says Cornet's broken. Okay, I've got a doubles match about 2 Slovaks, but completed. Kruger. I've got Kruger. The app's not updated, which is great.
I think Kudermetova won, actually, if I'm looking at this.
Perfect.
So 2-0. Yeah, so that means that we have Kudermetova against Rekakova. It would have been nice to see Knife go all the way to the semi-final. The 17-year-old, I believe, from Switzerland.
Yes,
is that correct?
very much an up and coming youngster. Seems
Yeah.
to be quite good at putting them out there.
Yeah, and she beat Venus Williams. That was a pretty fun matchup in the first round. It was actually all Venus Williams in the first set, and then the second set was really, really close. And then you saw that when Knife clinched it in the tiebreak, that Venus didn't really have the energy anymore to compete for the third set. But 70-year-old against a 42-year-old?
42, 43, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, what a difference.
I mean, it's almost like the Ryan Giggs of tennis ball. If anyone gets that reference. But it's no, I mean, it's good to see Venus back on the court. I know she looked decent in Adelaide in Auckland before she got injured at the start of the year. But yeah, I mean, it probably is a situation with Venus that she could probably do 2 sets, and that's basically about it. I mean, it's at this stage, and yeah, I mean, Knife did an excellent job at being able to sort of keep with Venus. I mean, Venus was always going to come out the traps quite quickly, and that was sort of seen with the result as it ended up being. And Venus has got a few more tournaments she's going to play. She's going to Birmingham next. So let's see if she can start to get a couple of wins under her belt. But yeah, it's just great to see Venus Williams back on the court, and it's great to see a young up and coming Swiss player showing what she's worth.
Yeah, and I think the whole entourage of Venus Williams with Serena also being in, and then the whole family, it also gave quite a lot of attention to the Rosmalen tournament, which is really good actually for the tournament, also from an international perspective. Another result that I wanted to highlight is Azarenka just going out really quickly against Kruger, who was knocked out immediately after. So that's, I think, a pretty bad result from an Azarenka perspective.
It's unfortunately Azarenka is prone to these bizarre losses that which come out of complete thin air. I mean, Azarenka's she's a 2-time Wimbledon semi-finalist. Like, she knows her way around the grass court. But yeah, it's just one of these situations where Azarenka just has an off day, and Kruger took advantage, and then somebody took advantage of Kruger. The joys of the tennis system.
That's how it goes. So we have Gary in, who has joined our side. So thank you, Gary, for being with us on this, saying don't want to offend clay courters, court lovers, but for me, something is right with the world again when grass season comes. Cannot agree more, Gary. Hardcore too, but then again, I'm American. Yeah, that's fair enough, Gary. But we are. I mean, for me, I would probably take clay over hardcourt, but the grass is definitely on top. All right, so there's a lot of really good tournaments coming up. I'll take you through the ATP ones. Is the Nottingham Challenger coming up, and then we have I pronounced it wrongly, so maybe you can help me here. But Sinch.
The Singe Championship is a car company that has a guy who used to be on the X Factor on the main part of their advertising. If anyone knows what the X Factor is,
Okay.
Which is the prestigious Queen's Club. I'm going to.
Oh wow, James, you're really yeah, that's really cool. I was wondering when looking at these stats, why isn't one of these 1,000?
That is a big question that has raised on tennis Twitter and also with the ATP for a while. I think very much. I think now people are coming to the idea that we do need a grass 1,000. You have 1,000 events on the clay. You have 1,000 events on the hard. There should be an 1,000 event, at least one for the grass court. Now, I would probably say, and it's going to be weird coming from Brit saying this, but I would think that that the Halle and Berlin should be the ones that should be hosting the 1,000 event, just down to the fact that you could do you can do a similar situation as they have with Canada, where you have Toronto and Montreal switching each year with who hosts which event. You could have the same with Berlin and Halle taking place, given the size of Germany. But then also down to the fact that Germany, because of the fact that Hamburg got stripped of its 1,000 status 15 odd years or 20 odd years ago now, it hasn't got anything bigger than a 500 taking place in its country. Yep. Germany is such a huge nation that it deserves at least an 1,000 event to take place in that. And something like a German Open based around Halle and also Berlin would be absolutely brilliant for that to take place. And you could have literally that point of that week, 1 week in the calendar where you have it there. You can have Queens still having its 500 taking place just before Haller or whatnot, and then you could have a few other sort of 500s dotted around, and you can easily make a calendar a week extra in length where you can actually ensure that you've got an 1,000 event. If there should be one, everyone knows there should be one. It's just down to the ATP and the WTA to get together and actually to sort out a plan to install one into the tennis calendar.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. Quickly on the women's side, we have another Roeland in Birmingham. Then we have the Bet10 Open in Berlin, the Veneto Open in Gaiba, Italy. Then we have Bad Homburg, also in Germany. And then another one in Eastbourne, the 500 actually. So that's quite a big one still before Wimbledon.
Another one I'm going to. There you go.
You really planned your grass season well. That's amazing to hear.
Yeah, absolutely love love going to these events. Especially I live in the southeast of England, so I can access the London one quite easily.
Everyone should, and the Ghost is asking how much the tickets are. I think the ones that are now available, because it's probably sold out, are going to be really expensive. It's going to be like the VIP tickets are like €300, but I think the ones that we paid for, we got the tickets immediately when they were available. I think they were €50-60, and that's for the semi-final, so that's actually not too bad. I think if you get a ticket for like the whole day on the smaller courts during the week, I think you could do probably with €30-40. So that's actually I think the prices are fair.
I got a few friends on tennis Twitter who went early in the week to Nottingham, and they spent like 19 quid on a ticket, and they had an absolute ball. Saw so many different players on so many different courts.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah.
Unfortunately, for something like the Cinch Championships, the Queens one, it is unbelievably expensive. They're charging close to best way to describe it, Grand Slam levels of amounts for a 500 event, but it is an absolutely brilliant place to go to, and then other events sort of go down in price, but they are still pretty high.
Yeah, we have BJ Fresh in with the update saying Cornet wins, so thanks a lot BJ for updating us, and that means we're going to have I think some good semi-finals over in the UK. All right, so then I think we're moving on to the general takeaways from the grass season. I think most of these we've already discussed, but the seeds are having trouble to adapt to the grass. It's kind of hard to judge form for Wimbledon, but this is also us kind of already. Yeah. So let's see how that goes. The grass courts are the best courts in the world, and I think the question that arises, and that's also something that Gary asked us earlier, will anyone beat Novak Djokovic on grass this year, or is he going to ruin everyone's day again in London? What do you think? I
generally would probably say that I cannot see past Novak winning it again. But the issue this comes up with a general issue when it comes to the rest of the tour, which is why are we in a situation where we pretty much know who's going to win this Grand Slam, and it's still 6 weeks away. We should not be in a situation where we're going into a Grand Slam knowing who's going to win already, because then it ruins a bit of the competition point. We didn't go into the French Open thinking that. We were going, is it Alcaraz? Is it Medvedev? Is it Djokovic? Who's going to win? We went into Melbourne saying the same thing in terms of, was it going to be Tsitsipas? Was it going to be Medvedev? Was it going to be Djokovic again down there? But now in a sort of situation where, because Novak's, he actually put the hard work in on grass, knows how to work on the surface, and still stays one of the best players in the world on that court.
Yeah, and he's unbeaten for such a long time on Wimbledon. Just to come back to Ghost here for 1 second, ruin everyone's day again. I meant the players. So I guess if you're looking at the draw for Wimbledon, everyone who gets Novak Djokovic in their quarter is going to have a really bad night of sleep. So that's what I meant with it.
I mean, you very much want to look at it, and you want to make sure you are as far away from Novak as possible if you want a deep run, because as soon as you meet him, you're probably gone. I mean, I think there literally is only probably one player I could think of that could possibly even beat Novak at the moment.
Yeah, this is a good bridge, James, that you're making to the most controversial part of this presentation, and the part where we're probably going to get the most criticism from all the people in the chat. But it's the grass power rankings. We've both listed our top 10 players and then some honorable mentions. Maybe you want to take us through your list, and if you want to give some extra clarification for some players, then go for it.
That's okay. So starting off at the top, I mean, you cannot go against the top two players in the world at the moment, Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz. Djokovic is there, mainly the fact that he's won it 4 times on the bounce. When it comes to this title, he hasn't lost in years. He knows how to play on the grass and probably will end up winning it. That's unfortunately, let's be honest, point of this. Alcaraz, I put him in number 2. I would have put him lower, but given the fact that he did make the 4th round and it was really pretty much the second time he's ever played on grass. Last year, I've actually got some hope that if he can have a good run at Queens and put that under his belt, because that's where he's due to play next week, he should, in theory, be able to have a good run and possibly get to a semi-final or a final. Hence the reason why I've got him at number 2. I've got Medvedev at number 3, mainly because of last year's good run.
Fair enough.
Good run on the grass, getting to the final in both, to Hergenbosch, getting to the final in Halle, and then getting to the semi-finals in Mallorca. He had a really good run on the grass courts and showed a really good turn of pace and quality on there. Then going down, Fritz got to the quarterfinals, nearly beat Nadal last time around. 2-time Eastbourne champion, does like it on the grass. I then got Norrie in there, mainly down to the fact that he did get to the semi-finals last year and is a finalist of the year prior. And I've got to say that he is very much getting more adapted to the grass and is a player that is prepared to put the work in on the surface. And as such, I bumped him above there. Sinner, because he got to the quarterfinals last year, actually started to show that he could work on the surface. It just takes him some time to actually get used to it, as we're seeing with some of the results he's had at the moment. Probably the one thing which is going to cause most people a bit of a funny turn is Murray. Given the fact that Andy is literally the only person in the draw at Wimbledon out of 128 players that has actually beaten Novak Djokovic at Wimbledon, we have to have him in there. We have to have the fact that he's won a title this year. Won a title on the grass this year at the challenger level. He's very much strong on the surface. It is his best chance at a deep run. Yep, and I think he would be the one that has the best chance of actually possibly even beating Djokovic if they ever face themselves in any sort of stage of the competition, because they both have each other's number on that surface, and it is Murray's strongest bit. FAA should be good on the grass, but has had some jitters at times, but should be able to do that.
And kind of a rough season so far, right?
Bit of rough season. I think that he has the game to be able to work on it, so I've given him a little bit of a free pass on that one.
That's the kind of you.
Yeah, and then I've got last year's finalist and then 2021's finalist, Kyrgios and Berrettini. I think if they can get a couple of other tournaments under their belt, they may get themselves into a position where they can at least be somewhat semi-decent on the surface. So that tends to be my top 10. And then I've got Hurkacz and Shapo. They both got to the semi-finals in 2021. Again, can show that they can work on the surface. And then you've got Tommy Paul, who tends to do quite well on the surface as well, along with Alex de Minaur, who also has won Eastbourne in the past. He's got to the final at Eastbourne last year and had a good deep run a year prior at Wimbledon as well. So that kind of explains why I put them as my sort of top 10 and my honourable mentions.
All right. Well, I think a lot of good choice, and I just realized that I'm not putting a lot of respect on the British players with my list, but I have the same top 2, and I think there's not much to discuss. I don't see Alcaraz losing early in Wimbledon, so I think these power rankings for me are mostly aimed at who's going to do well in Wimbledon. I think for you as well. Fritz, not much to discuss, but Hachanov, I think, has done so well in Grand Slams that I have to put him super high in the list. I feel like he's bound to get to another semi-final because he's been playing so well on these important moments. And Medvedev, I just hope that it's a player that I really like. I just hope he finds some kind of form back, because last year he was often arguing with the umpire, but after the match he always said like, it was only to get myself sharper, etc. But now I feel like he's more losing it again sometimes in matches, like he's going too far with the arguing, etc. And he's actually losing points, and he's not helping himself anymore, but he's just getting derailed. Tsitsipas, I still believe in him. Of course, last year did really well in Mallorca. I think he could be a really good grass player, and maybe with his newfound love, he's going to shine on Wimbledon. TFO is also a lot of I have a lot of hope for him. I think he's an amazing player. I think the grass could actually suit him quite well, and I really hope that he does well in this tournament. Hurkacz, I'm kind of up and down about her coach because he was not great, I think, in the past weeks, and now he's getting some results. But his serve is so big that he should actually get to at least the last 8 in this tournament. Sinner, you already talked about, and then I have Jordan Thompson, which is more like big up for his form. He won, I think, 9 out of his last 10 grass matches, and he's doing quite well. And then my honorable mentions, Andy is in there. Griespoor, I have to put a Dutch player in there. There's not much to choose from, so I have to go with him. Paul, I agree with you. And then Korda, I think we were surprised by his Grand Slam run last year. And I think he's a player who could also do well on the surface. And I was looking up some grass ELO rankings, and then he was actually doing quite well. So interested to see if he can bring something. And then I saw a question from Ghost saying, explain Hachanov, please. Does he have a grass pedigree? Well, last season he was not allowed to play any grass tournaments almost. So I think he played maybe 1 tournament. And the year before that, actually, I don't remember. So that's maybe bad from me. But I would say that Hachanov for me is evolving.
I was just trying to remember from last year. Him like Rublev just played Halle, and then they chose basically to sit out the entirety of the grass season.
They played hard court.
And then they went straight onto the clay court, straight the
post. Clay court. Okay.
Because I remember seeing both of those two playing, one at Borstad, and then the other one played at Hamburg.
Fair enough, thank you. So I think for me, Hachanov is evolving more and more into a player that is good on any surface because he has the mentality and he has the playing style, but he does have a pretty decent serve. So I'm interested to see what he can do here. We have Sporty Sport asking, where's Christian Garin? I mean, you tell us.
That is the philosophical question we've been having for the past 18 months. Where is Christian Garin?
Where is he?
Where is he?
All right, I think
not to downgrade it, Sporty. I just don't include him because he's had a terrible season as to the current state at the moment. And he had a really big surprise run on the grass last year. I was very surprised given the fact he's, I see him as one of those clay court mercenaries. But at the moment, because of his form this year, I couldn't include him in my top.
I was just looking it up, and he's ranked 124 currently. That's quite a big drop for him, and I don't think we need to expect anything from him here. I think that wraps up the ATP power rankings quite well. So a lot of people with some different picks, also people agreeing with us. I think that's all that there is to say. Then moving on to the women's rankings, maybe you want to take us through yours again?
Sure. So I've got the last year's winner at the top. I think at the start of a grass court power rankings, you kind of have to start with last year's winner. But very much I think she'll have another good season this season. It'd be interesting to see because I think she's going to be playing Berlin and then Eastbourne as her 2 tournaments and seeing how she performs. And then we've got Sabalenka. She's been to the semi-finals of Wimbledon 2 years ago. Has a game built for grass. Given the fact she's the second best player in the world at the moment, I can't not have her in my at the top of my top 10. Jabeur, again, finalist last year, won Berlin last year. Very much has a good grass court pedigree, and actually, although we had our injury concerns with her during the French Open, she actually managed to get a few matches under her belt that meant that she actually showed some good form. So I think she's going to be completely fine coming into this grass season, and I'm expecting good things from her. Garcia, she's somebody who's won a title on grass last year at Bad Homburg. Had a good run at Wimbledon as well. Very much, although she's had a bit of a hit and miss season so far. Maybe because I'm a bit blindsided, I'm a big Garcia fan, but very much, she's in the top 10 for me. Swiatek, I got a number 5. I've only got her so low as that. Is that there was a stat that I saw that she has not beaten a player above 60 in the world on grass at all.
Oh, that's an interesting stat, yeah.
So that to me casts some doubt. But she's also a junior Wimbledon winner. She's also, which to me then means we've got this weird oxymoron with Swiatek, where on the one hand she was brilliant when she was a junior on the surface, but on the other she can't buy a win for love nor money at the moment on it. Yeah. But I think with a tournament in her when it comes to she's going to do Bad Homburg this year. with a tournament.
James, for Swiatek, don't you think that with how she's like progressing as a player, also being super versatile, that she's bound to have like a good grass season at some point?
Absolutely. I think, there will be a good grass season in her. Is if she's prepared, given how short the season is, to actually put the work in on the surface.
Yeah,
because there's only it's very rare to find somebody who is very good on all three surfaces. There tends to have to be a surface that that a player has to pick to actually sort of jump down a bit there. But I hope that she has a good run. She has a good draws at Wimbledon. She can certainly go quite deep into it, and maybe a few more matches on the surface means that she'll be feeling a lot more comfortable on that. And then just to go back, Kvitova, again, she's won the title twice. I know it was over 10 years ago, but she's won it twice. She won Eastbourne last year. Tends to play very well on the surface. I'm just hoping it transpires that it's one of those sort of 3 or 4 tournaments a year that Kvitova shows up to. And then golf, again, it's the place that we saw her breakout when she was 15 and beating Venus Williams in that brilliant match.
Amazing.
She tends to have been quite consistent when she's in Wimbledon. She's got something like a fourth round, and third round over the last few times that she's been. So I very much hope that she can get a good run. I hope she can pick up a title on the grass just before.
Yes, for sure.
Do that. Mukova, she's had a couple of good results in the recent past. Given what happened at the French Open, you cannot not have her in the top 10. Azarenka, again, semi-finalist, tends to play quite well on the surface and tends to show up for the slams. And then Ostapenko, she won Eastbourne 2 years ago, got to the final the year prior. And actually, if it weren't for the pure fact that Beatrice had had a game that completely tore Ostapenko's hair out, played.
On the Ostapenko pick, because I don't have her in my top 10 or my honorable mentions while she's one of my favorite players, but I just think that she has let me down in brackets so many times that I have to put her on the bench for quite some time. How do you see this? Do you think she's able to turn it around this time on Wimbledon, for instance?
I think if there was any tournament she was going to do it in, it would be Wimbledon. She has the game for the grass, and she just needs to make sure she has a good run. Maybe a draw that opens up when she doesn't play players that like to slice the ball back to her all the time, which Maria likes to do over and over and over again. And
no patience.
Just watching it slice and slice and slice and slice. It was like going to a butcher's. But then, so I see her as a top 10 threat. Maybe, she could get to the 4th round, possibly the quarterfinals. We'll see what happens there. And then some honorable mentions. Pegula, consistent this year still. Grant, so you have to have her as an honorable mention in like a top 15 type period.
Fair enough.
Maya, again, won 2 titles on the grass last season. Granted, she lost her first match at Nottingham this week, which meant that she would have gone from being in my top 10 to the honourable mentions because of that, because I got a slight concern. But I do also counter that by the fact that she did get to the semi-finals at French Open. That's a lot of tennis, and then going straight into a tennis tournament after that, it's just too much tennis at that point for her. And then Pliskova got to the final 2 years ago, can't ride out the grass. And Tom Janovic, has got 2 quarterfinals back to back to her name. Again, another player that has a game built for the grass. Aussie. I very much fancy her as another dark horse that could do another quarterfinal run. There we go.
Yeah, well, that's thanks for highlighting some of these picks, and I've actually one opinion from Sporty Sport I want to highlight. I think you also agree with is that the point is that the organizers should give Tomic a wildcard into Wimbledon. Of course, there's a lot of players who could get a wildcard. Not so sure if I agree on Tomic getting one, but the second point about good grass court pedigree being very rare, I have to agree with. And it's kind of hard for people who are only good on grass, for instance, to maintain a high enough ranking to get into these tournaments. So that's a bit of that's the whole weird thing, is that you see a lot of people who are really good on gravel and on hardcourt, they get seeded or they get a main draw entrance to these grass court tournaments, and then you have people in the qualifiers maybe who are actually better on grass, and that's probably one of the reasons that all these seeds are getting knocked out.
It's one of those things we noticed with the game generally, is that grass courts are somewhat overtaking clay courts in terms of their uniqueness of a surface you have to adapt to. Once upon a time, players could adapt very well between a hard court and a grass court without any issues because of how often they played on both the surfaces. And then when they would go to clay, that would be the major issue for them having to adapt. Now it seems to be a situation where players tend to play quite well on clay and hard, and then when they come to the grass courts, it's like, whoa, what surface are we on? What are we able to do? Which is, yeah, a bit bizarre, a bit of a shame as well, because we are in a situation. I know it's going off a little bit of track at the moment, but if you look at 10 years ago, for example, you looked at the top 10 in both the men and the women. Every single one of those players, barring one or two, showed up for the grass courts. They were epic. You think about the men. You had the big, of course, had the big four. You had Songa. You had Wawrinka. He showed up. Del Potro, Mohamed Ferrer even showed up. A range of those top 10 players. Bernard Tomic. Bernard Tomic. I think about Berdych. Yeah, Thomas Berdych, Marian Cilic. There was a range of players that showed up on the surface every year in, year out. And it was made for brilliant matches. In a situation where you look at the top 10 now, only really like 20 to 30% of them would you say that they would want to be good on grass, and it's to see.
And for instance, also Andy Roddick was also really good on the grass.
And Hewitt.
Yeah, Hewitt as well. Okay, so just to take everyone through my list, and thanks, Sir John. I'm sure the new song for Novak is due soon. Ben is, as always, cooking in his studio. And the Kingdom of Ostapenko is very disappointed in me. I'll have to take it. Maybe the good grass season will make me pick her again, but for now I cannot overcome over the fact that I think I had her in my finals in Roland Garros, and we all know what happened there. So okay, so my list. Rybakina, I think she played so well last year on Wimbledon, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing from her all through the year. So I think she's a good pick for victory. Ons Jabeur, I just really want to see her win Wimbledon, actually. That would make me super happy. I think she's an amazing person. She has a really nice playstyle. The only thing with Jabeur is that I feel like she's always prone to drop a set against any player on tour. It doesn't matter in which round. We saw it also last year a few times that she wins the first set 6-1 and then just drops the second one 6-1 as well. And I think if the opponent is actually having a really good third set, then you could be in trouble. So I think that's the reason that I don't put her at number one here. Then we have Iga. Hopefully she will have a good grass season. Already talked about it. Sabalenka as well. I think if her serve is good and she can keep the unforced errors under control, then she's bound to be in the semi-final. Kvitova, she's not 53 actually, saw someone claiming that, but that's not true. Kudermetova, I think based on recent results on grass and hard court, I'm really liking her actually. She was very poor at Roland Garros, if I recall correctly, but I can see her going deep actually this year on Wimbledon. Goff, you already talked about, I completely agree. Then Tatjana Maria, based on last year's Wimbledon, I think she made the quarters or semi-final, but not exactly sure from the top of my head.
Yeah, it was semi-final. I would have had her in my lot, but she got knocked out by Kate.
Yeah.
And then she got knocked out by Heather Watson in Nottingham. So I kind of knocked her down a few pegs because of that.
Yeah, fair enough. But I actually think she will do really well this season. Mukova we already talked about, and Alexandrova I'm so excited about that I put her here and in the honorable mentions. So that means she must be quite good. But I can see her being like at least a top 10 player on this surface. And then we have Cornet, who I think is aging like fine wine. She's, in my opinion, getting back to a level that we hadn't seen her play in quite some time. Watson, to give some respect back to the Brits, and then Haddad Maya, I agree with you. I think very exciting player. It was really nice to see her make this deep run in Roland Garros, and I see no reason why she shouldn't be able to pull some nice things off in the grass season.
Absolutely. All evidence reasons why you would pick those players there.
Thank you. If there's anyone else in the chat who has some different opinions, maybe some players that we didn't talk about at all. By the way, Ghost, I realized I said gravel instead of clay. That's actually the way that we call it in the Netherlands. So we call the clay courts gravel courts. So that's the slip of the tongue. Alright, then maybe this was last one to react to. Thinking on putting Kudermetova over Mukova, based on Kudermetova already having some good results on grass right now, and Mukova, I'm not sure if she's so accomplished on the grass court. On the other hand, if you saw her play on Roland Garros, there shouldn't be much doubt about her potential.
No, yeah. I mean, just to go to Mukova, it was I think my understanding is she did get to a quarter final like 2 or 3 years ago at Wimbledon, and I think has shown some good qualities on the surface. It's just that she's always been injured when the grass season usually pops around. Which is so I'm kind of doing this hoping that there's going to be no hospital pass given to me for Mikova's pick.
Fair enough. All right. Then I think if there's anyone that still has like a question that would like to see answered, then please put it in the chat right now. We'll have a quick look if there's anything in there currently. Maybe this is a good one to round it off with, James. I would like to hear your opinion on Roeland getting back in form, because he had a really good first round win, and then I think the second round was not as good.
No, I was really surprised that he won. I believe it was a seeded player who actually beat in the first round. But no, it was, for a guy that's not played for 2 years, he can still play. He can still play. Was what we picked up from his little run around Rosmarlen. It's good to see Radic back. I fear that the game notes probably moved past him. That he's got a big serve, but people are going to be able to find him out pretty quickly. And just Murray did it quite well. Federer, Nadal, whatnot during the time when Raonic was at his peak. But no, it's just good. I'll never knock anyone in their 30s coming back after Murray's come back and whatnot. And
fair enough.
I always I don't know how, but I've now become a person that loves to see the oldies sort of win, and sometimes like the youngsters to sort of see out.
Yeah. All right. We have some other questions coming in. Or maybe this is a good one. Gigi Abraham asking, what can Jabeur improve in her game to win a slam? Yeah, so I think the first point would be the point that I already made about being prone to lose set against considerably worse players for no reason. Maybe you have something else to add to that, James.
I think the main thing I think about, which was the heartbreak during for Jabeur last year, was the Wimbledon loss. She was a setup. She was in control of that match, and I think it was just mentality that broke down for her. It was between the ears that was the thing that let her down, and that's the thing she needs to make sure she improves upon, because that was a tournament that she should have won. Realistically, she should have picked up the Venus Rosewater ditch. With how that match was going, if she can make sure that mentally she's in a good place when she goes into those situations, and maybe the fact that she's already been in that situation of being a setup, near enough being a breakup, and then losing it, she'll then be able to sort of be able to work from that and know what to do in those situations again. I would just say the main thing is she's got a good game in terms of her ability to use all aspects of the court, not just bashing it from the baseline, but bringing people forward, using lobs, using slices, using all the varieties of shots, which is excellent to see. That will win her tournaments. It won Ash Barty tournaments by playing that similar sort of
for sure. Yep.
It just requires her to make sure she uses the right tools in the right situation.
Yeah, and I would like to add to that I'm not always as impressed with her serve. So I think it can be lacking, and on grass it can be a big weapon. So she needs to stay away from the double faults and actually put some power on the serve, I guess. Yeah. Then we have Daz asking who's playing at Queens. I know that Paul is playing in Dimitrov.
I've got the list here. So we've got on the list at the moment, we've got Jordan Thompson's got a special exemption into Queens. You'll be pleased to hear. So the top seeds at Queens. So we got top seed will be Carlos Alcaraz, there'll be Holger Rune, Taylor Fritz, Francis Tiafoe, Cameron Norrie, Lorenzo Musetti, Alex Di Minor, Francisco Cerundolo, Matteo Berrettini, Dan Evans.
That's a pretty hefty list.
Well, I think the Haller list is even more hefty in terms of names. Then you've got Korda, Foki, Stan Skup, Shelton, Huber, Lehechka, Kachanov, Cressy, Risavori, Murray, Zappa Morales, Marino, Thompson, Schwartzman, and Minos Raonic. And then for the other tournament, Haller, that's where you've got Medvedev, Tsitsipas, Rublev, Sinner, Auger, Hurkacz, Koric, Baptista Agut, Zverev, Struff, Kyrgios, Shapovalov, Jarry, Grigspor, Sonego, Bublik, Kabayas Baella, Nakashima, Gasquet, Barrère, Jur, Yilmaz, and also Wu, Moutet, Team, Otter, and Lloyd Harris.
Oh, thank you, James. So that's I think both those tournaments are really something to look forward to. And I think looking forward to those tournaments is something that we will be doing quite soon. I want to thank everyone for having all these excellent questions. Really looking forward to these grass tournaments, seeing them live tomorrow in Rosmalen. And I think, James, you're also looking forward quite a lot to the tournaments that you'll be going to.
Oh, absolutely. I'm culminating by going to Wimbledon for one of the days as well, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, well, then we are expecting some live streams and blogs on the channel, and then I think we can wrap it up here. Thank you so much, James, for joining me. It was a blast to do this together, and maybe more to follow this kind of grass updates.
That'd be excellent. It's good being on.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. If you haven't yet, hit the like button on the video, click on the bell icon, other things that streamers say when they are adding a video, and hope to see you guys soon in one of the other streams on the channel. Ciao.